We're continuing some studies in the book of Ecclesiastes as King Solomon, who I believe is the great, may as well call it Christian philosopher, because all of it kind of runs in together when you're looking at the general principles about worshiping God in spirit and in truth. And there was a good bit of spirit and truth in the Old Testament, especially a lot of truth. It was obedience to the law, but yet there had to be a faith and there had to be a desire. There had to be a love for God on the part of the people before they were going to do much of anything. And there are things that always compete in our world for our love for God. You know, the world wants our love. Satan wants our love. People want the love that's destined or designed for God. They want that from us also for themselves. And so we've got to be very careful and make sure that even the love that we have for one another and the love that we have for things is in its proper place and is not exchanged for the love of God, because that takes away not only from God. I think what Solomon is trying to show us, is that it takes away from what we would call happiness. You know, the framers of the Constitution said that we had the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You understand that happiness came along a little bit later in their discussions, because it started out property, life, liberty, and property. But they kind of understood that not everybody's happiness, so to speak, is invested in material things. That many times there are things other than the material that create happiness or joy for us. They recognized it, because they wanted to express it in that way, and that's why we have it in the, that's not in the Constitution, that's in the Declaration of Independence, isn't it? So, you know, that's how they came to those particular terms, that, you know, even the person who does not want to have a right relationship with God still has God-given rights by the Creator. And of course, we want to move away. We desire and appreciate and thank God for His Creator blessings. But we want the Father blessings. We want those spiritual blessings of forgiveness, the gift of the Holy Spirit, His providence working out in our lives. And of course, that was included in the Founding Fathers' understanding of things also. Now, as Solomon talks about it, I don't want it to seem like I'm always talking about riches and money and such, but that's what Solomon looks at, and I think he takes riches or materialism as kind of a substitute, or puts that in place and says, now you can look at other things in this way also. But here, the things of this world that would encroach upon our love for God and our relationship to God are things that are dangerous. And what he's telling us today is these physical things cannot create happiness. What they do, and I think that was really last week, you know, to a large degree, they can't create happiness, but they actually destroy happiness. The happiness that we could have in a full relationship with God. So in his quest to discover the true meaning of life, Solomon looks at every possible human solution and shows that it is vain, which means empty and useless. Human ways of finding happiness in this world will not work. The ways of the world will not work. So in Ecclesiastes 6, he looks at the theory that riches and wealth can make a person happy. And though we already know the conclusion, it's important that we understand how Solomon comes to that conclusion. You see, it's one thing to say, well, you know, the Bible teaches that materialism or riches are kind of dangerous, but we need to understand how did they understand it? How does it come? How do we come to that conclusion so that we can, kind of spin it around in our own minds and say, yeah, that makes sense. Now I understand it. So let's look at some. Oh, okay. I thought there was a bird in the air conditioner.
It is.
All right. So Solomon begins by pointing out two things regarding riches, and it's riches, but hey, material things. It doesn't have to be money. It doesn't have to be 3 cars and a 4-car garage or whatever. But the material way of looking, the secular way of looking at things, and things just in general that again would be substitutes for our God. Things that we get into relationships with, have a strong desire for other than God. And first of all, he says there's a vanity in riches without use. Riches without use, material things without use. Now, Jesus taught a parable about a rich man whose ground brought forth plenty. Like 100 times more than it always did. It was the bumper crop of all bumper crops. And he said, I know what I'll do. I'll tear down my barns and build bigger barns, and I won't have to plant and cultivate and I won't have to do any of that anymore. I have everything that I ever wanted. I can just tell my soul, sit back and relax, take your ease. And Jesus said, that night the man died. He died. He didn't get to enjoy it. He didn't get to use it. He didn't have any plans really to use it in a way that would help others and would promulgate, keep going, his blessings from God. He just wanted to stop there. So I think that's what Solomon is talking about here to a degree. Now listen to what he says, first couple verses. There is an evil that I have seen under the sun, and it lies heavy on mankind. He says this isn't a small thing. This isn't a small isolated thing over here. This is the way mankind has gone in general. It's heavy. It's a big load that mankind's trying to carry here, and they're not able to do it. Verse 2, he says, a man to whom God gives wealth, possessions, and honor, so that he lacks nothing of all that he desires, yet God does not give him power to enjoy them. But a stranger enjoys them. This is vanity. It is a grievous evil. And he says, yeah, you look at it. That doesn't seem fair, does it? There are people who work all their lives, and I'm at that point in my life. I'm looking for a few more years, but I just can't wait till I draw that Social Security so that I don't have to work anymore, right? And they die right before they get the Social Security, and the government keeps the money. And we say, well, that doesn't seem fair. That's the way the world is, isn't it?
Amen.
It isn't fair. And as much as I want to enjoy some Social Security for a number of years, I can't pin all of my hopes on that. And I surely can't pin my happiness on it. If there's no joy now, and there's only joy or that happiness later when that check starts coming in, then look at all that I've wasted. Look at all that life has passed by here. So the power to enjoy the blessings of this life is in itself a gift from God. A gift from God. That creator gift. It comes to everybody because we live in a world that has a bounty here. And sometimes you don't even have to grow a garden. You can go out and there's berries growing and fruit on trees and nuts and stuff. It's out there. It's to enjoy. You go out and do some fishing and some hunting. Man survived for a long time without Walmart, without canned goods and such. Now, that's made life better. I never would disagree with that. But yet, with all the technology that we have, are we any happier? As happiness, have we reached a peak of happiness? No, I think it's just created more confusion for people and more concern and anxiety. So in Ecclesiastes, this is a gift from God. Not only the thing that comes from God, but the power to enjoy it. And I think that's what the Apostle Paul's getting at in the Philippian letter. And I think that's why I like Philippians so much. Is Paul's talking about being satisfied, even if it's with a little. Find your satisfaction in God, in Jesus Christ, in the Holy Spirit. Find your satisfaction there, and the things of this world won't cause anxiety in your life. And Paul could write that while he was in prison. What an amazing thing. Now Solomon's going to consider the opposite case, say, a man may possess many earthly goods and yet not enjoy them. Just simply not enjoy it. Possession and enjoyment are not necessarily joined together. You know, if you got an ornery old bull, there's no joy in that. If you got cows that get out all the time, say, well, what joy is there in that? You know, if you got a dog that bites, what joy is there in that? You're going to have constant lawsuits, trouble with your neighbors. So the true enjoyment of life lies not in the abundance of outward goods, but rather in a cheerful and contented spirit. And that's what he talks about in Ecclesiastes 5:13, what we looked at last week. So, could it be that much of our lack of contentment with what we have stems from our refusal to share our blessings? Now in Acts chapter 20, verse 35, as Luke is writing about the early church and Paul's teaching about the nature of Christ and the character of Christ, he says, in all things I have shown you that by working hard in this way, we must help the weak and remember the words of the Lord Jesus, how he himself said, it is more blessed to give than to receive. Well, how did Paul know that? Paul wasn't one of the 12 disciples of Jesus, 12 apostles. He was the one born out of due season. He probably wasn't even a follower of Jesus. If he followed Jesus at all in Jesus' earthly ministry, it was as one of the Pharisees who was out there to challenge him. Is this something that he heard in that context? Or is this something that the Holy Spirit has revealed to him? That's an interesting thought, isn't it? Did you think about that? If the Apostle Paul, as Saul of Tarsus, in his teenage years, so to speak, growing up at the feet of Gamaliel, a well-known Pharisee, though a fair Pharisee, it would be hard if he had not known Jesus Christ. Not as the Christ, but as an enemy, as one that he thought maybe he should destroy. And maybe he was one in the crowd who was saying, crucify him, crucify him. Did you ever think about that? Think about their ages. Think about where they were, how things progressed. But here is a statement, from the Lord. He himself said, it's more blessed to give than to receive. How's that? Because we find true enjoyment or true happiness, true joy in it. Now, secondly, Solomon says there's also a vanity of riches without enjoyment. Okay? Riches without enjoyment. Verses 3 through 6. If a man fathers 100 children and lives many years, so that the days of his years are many, but his soul is not satisfied with life's goods, and he also has no burial, I say that a stillborn child is better off than he. What? A stillborn child is better off than he. Is that projector making that noise? Yeah, I'd say that.
That sounds like a bottle of water that's popping or something.
Yeah,
But there's no water up here.
I thought that it was pretty
A lamp,
dark. Yeah,
Oh, I
the
bet
lamp.
it's
I think that
slow.
bulb's
It's
getting
bulb.
ready to.
bulb about ready to go.
So, but anyway, he says a stillborn child is better off than he. Someone who lives a tremendously long life and has a lot of stuff, but he doesn't enjoy it. For it comes in vanity and it goes in darkness, and in darkness its name is covered. That's a stillborn child. Moreover, it has not seen the sun or known anything, yet it finds rest rather than he.
I think it just died.
Yeah, I think so. Well, yeah, you can go ahead and turn it off. It'll be fine. Verse 6, even though he should live 1,000 years twice over, yet enjoy no good, do not all go to the one place. Now, we've talked before how the rich and poor both die, but you think about it in those terms. A stillborn child is dead, but if a person lives for 2,000 years and dies, he's still dead, and they both go to the same place. But he says that stillborn child would have an advantage over that one who lived for 2,000 years and had all this stuff that they didn't enjoy, even though that child never had it to enjoy it. So it matters little if one is unable to be satisfied, which again is a gift that God gives. Without that satisfaction, he's worse off than a stillborn child. Really, he's lifeless. He's got life, but there's not life involved in it. There are a lot of people out here who are, well, some would call them zombies. They're just dead people walking. They're just going through the motions and they're not enjoying life. There's no happiness there for them. There are some who hoard their money so much that they would even refuse to use it for their own burial. Now, we call that person a miser, right? A grouchy old miser. It was dishonorable for one not to be buried. Throughout the Old Testament teaching and such, and yeah, that's something that's got to be planned for. You just don't want to throw it on your children to have to do it. Solomon is saying that it's better for a person never to have lived than to have no burial. So great enjoyment in life comes from helping others. When we are blessed, it is a blessing to share the blessings with others. And the honorable person is going to receive an honor far beyond what he would even expect. Now you think of it in these terms. Jesus, when he died, was placed in a tomb owned by Joseph of Arimathea. He brought him to it and put him in there. And you think, well, Jesus didn't plan for his burial, did he? He only needed it for 3 days, right? It was a temporary thing, and God had the plans all in place there because he was going to be raised from the dead. Okay? Now, so are we. We might be more than 3 days in the grave. I think Paul says it's a twinkling of an eye. In the twinkling of an eye, this will happen. I don't know if we'll recognize time when we're in the Hadean realm, waiting for the spirit to be brought back to the body for the resurrection. But in a twinkling of an eye, it's going to happen. But it's something that we've got to be ready for, something we plan for. So when we are blessed, it is a blessing to share the blessings with others, because then others have no trouble sharing their blessings with us. Remember the joy you feel at Christmas when you see the children's faces light up because of a very special gift that they might receive? You think of it. Try to get that one special gift for the child. What do you want? What would you like? What do you want Santa Claus to bring you? Well, why would we ask questions like that? Well, we don't really want them to know that it's us that's getting it for them, but we want them to receive that one special thing that'll just make them joyful, make them happy. Now, we are to enjoy the blessings of this life. And Solomon says that a long life, even if we live for 2,000 years on this earth, if it was void of joy, it's no better than that of a child that dies at birth. There's really no difference. Except that the child who died at birth is probably a lot better off, because that child didn't know the tragedies, the heartaches that this world brings. So therefore it can be concluded, okay, here it is, don't miss this. It can be concluded that wealth cannot secure happiness. In fact, wealth or materialism destroys happiness if we allow it. So, what are we to do? Key question, right? Key question. If riches cannot bring happiness, how can they satisfy the soul? If material things cannot make you happy, then how in the world could they satisfy your soul? Which is deeper, which is stronger, which is going to live eternally, see? Ecclesiastes 6, 7 through 9. All the toil of a man is for his mouth, yet his appetite is not satisfied. Boy, we ate some good food today, didn't we?
Yeah.
We got filled up. So we shouldn't be hungry for, what, a week or two, right? I bet we eat supper, don't we?
Amen.
For what advantage has the wise man over the fool, and what does the poor man have who knows how to conduct himself before the living? He knows how to live right. He knows how to honor people. He knows how to be respectful. See? Verse 9, better is the sight of the eyes than the wandering of the appetite. This also is vanity and a striving after wind. So eating and drinking are proper uses of earthly blessings for self-preservation. However, appetite's never filled. There's an empty space there. We're going to get hungry. We're going to get thirsty again. That's the way of the world. We're never going to be satisfied. Is that not why Jesus said, blessed are those who hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be satisfied? Yeah, the physical hunger, the physical thirst is going to be there. It's going to be constant. But if that is your main thrust of living, you're not going to have satisfaction. But if you find righteousness, see, like that, this man, the poor man who knows how to conduct himself before the living. That's a righteous man, isn't it? He's going to have some satisfaction. If life consists only of feeding the body to the neglect of the soul, then man will feel the hopelessness of never truly being satisfied. And if man is never truly satisfied, then what advantage does a rich man have over a poor man? He doesn't have any advantage, does he? It just may look like it. Solomon also says it's better to enjoy the present than to feed oneself with vain desires of the future. What's the old proverb we say? A bird in the hand's worth two in the bush. Be satisfied with the one in the hand. What's God going to give us tomorrow? Another bird in the hand. You know, the early bird gets the worm, right? But as the Amishman says, he wants worms. But still he gets up early every day. And he goes about his work. And he finds some satisfaction. And though we may disagree with his theology, we have to admit they get along pretty well, don't they? Now, it is better to be content with what you have than wander after what you desire. That's tough, isn't it? That's tough. Because we got eyes. Lust of the eyes. We got flesh. Lust of the flesh. We got pride. We got that pride of life. So what does it do? If it drives us, we'll never be satisfied. we'll never be satisfied with God. So we've got to get away. We've got to get off the world's program and get onto God's program. And then we find satisfaction, true and lasting happiness, which is not found in the physical. It's found in the spiritual. So riches cannot change things. Wealth cannot change things. Materialism cannot change things. You say, well, if I had $1 million, it'd change. Listen to what Solomon says. Verses 10 and 11. Whatever has come to be has already been named, and it is known that what man is, and that he is not able to dispute with one stronger than he. The more words, the more vanity, and what is the advantage of man? We're going to fight with the devil. We're going to fight with the devil on his terms. We're going to fight with the devil with his weapons, and we're going to win. No, it doesn't work that way. We're going to fight against the world with the world's weapons. That's always disturbed me. Yeah, this is free. This is free. I'm just throwing this in for free. It always amazes me that there are people in the church, and I'm talking about broadly, that when a problem develops, they turn to a worldly way of solving the problem instead of doing it God's way. It just amazes me. You cannot fight the devil with his weapons. You cannot fight the world with the world's weapons. You cannot fight the lust of the eyes and the lust of the flesh and the pride of life with those things. It doesn't work. That's why Paul says, arm yourselves with the Christian armor, however you want to call it, the armor of faith, all those things, so that you can stand against those things. No, we want to fight the world, with more worldliness. What does that make us? It makes us worldly, doesn't it? So, whatever has come to be has already been named, and it is known what man is, and that he is not able to dispute with one stronger than he. Well, if I can't fight with somebody stronger than me, like the devil or like the world, what do I need to do? I need to get somebody to fight for me. I need to get Jesus. I need to get God. I need to get the angels on my side, the good angels. And that's what Paul talks about there in Ephesians chapter 6. But the more words, the more vanity. Yeah, preacher, you ought to be able to say that in 10 minutes. Well, sometimes you can't. Sometimes you just can't. And what is the advantage to man? And you've heard that old expression. Well, he talks a good fight. He talks a good fight. But what happens when the rubber meets the road? What happens when the fight really comes? Well, we're so blessed. Nobody's taking our lives or trying to take our lives like they are in places overseas right now. Could we stand? So mankind is frail and weak and subject to the sovereign appointment of God. And in that sovereign appointment of God, it's that we live in a world where temptation reigns, and lusts abound, and sin abounds. And you can't fight sin with sin. The highest percentage of groups, as sociologists and economists would classify groups that file bankruptcy, are lottery winners. Did you know that? You probably heard it. I've heard it I don't know how many times. Okay? But listen to this. And you can say, well, this is just anecdotal evidence. Well, it's pretty good anecdotal evidence about what goes on. From MarketWatch.com, Callie Rogers blew a 2003 United Kingdom lottery jackpot of $3 million. She won $3 million in the lottery, okay? She blew it on shopping, cocaine, friends, and breast augmentation, and told reporters 2 years ago she was working as a maid. Riches didn't change a thing for her, did they? Except parts got bigger. William Bud Post squandered his 1988 Pennsylvania prize of more than $16 million on houses, vehicles, and bad before his death in 2006. Happy? Was he happy? That wealth didn't bring him happy? It didn't change anything. See, the money, the wealth, and any material thing cannot change you. Can't change me. Now, if I'm a materialist, if I'm greedy, then I'm never going to be satisfied, right? But it doesn't change. It didn't change these people, and it doesn't change most, because they still have the same thoughts about money, the same thoughts that got them in trouble in the first place and said, yeah, I need to play the lottery. If I just win the lottery, everything will be okay. But it doesn't, because that does not change things. We cannot change what God has placed in order, namely that riches do not bring lasting happiness. It's impossible. They cannot satisfy. Riches are not the things that truly make man better. Solomon would say they only increase, vanity. Emptiness and worthlessness. So Solomon lays down his conclusion, which he had undertaken to prove. There are many things that increase vanity. Yeah. Everything in this world will increase vanity. It's the thing that comes from out of this world that will help us to fight the things, the temptations, the lusts, the desires, the sins that are in this world. Help us stand against them. The life of man at best is vain, and there is an abundance of things that concur to make it even more so. Even that which pretends to increase joy is vanity. It just pretends to increase, but it can't. True meaning of life is not found in striving after riches. Ecclesiastes 6:12. For who knows what is good for man while he lives the few days of his vain life, which he passes like a shadow. You actually think those riches are going to make you happy? Well, how many people in the world do? Most of them, because they're walking on that wide gate and the broad way, right? Jeremiah 10:23 says, I know, O Lord, that the way of man is not in himself, that it is not in man who walks to direct his own steps. So we're going to choose one of the two. We're either going to choose the Lord's way or we're going to choose the world's way. The world's way will not bring satisfaction. Ecclesiastes 6:12, the last part of it. Who can tell man what will be after him under the sun? What's going to be tomorrow? What's going to happen tomorrow? Job 1:21, and he said, naked I came from my mother's womb, naked shall I return. The Lord gave, and the Lord is taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. There's a man who was satisfied. Remember what he told his wife? Shall we accept only the good things from God and not the bad things? Does God give bad things? No, God allows bad things to happen to us, so we'll appreciate the good things. But it's God's judgment. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Indeed, the answers to these questions are not found in turning, are to be found in turning to God, not in turning to riches. Ecclesiastes 12:13, the end of the matter. All has been heard. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. Now, Solomon's a pretty wise guy, isn't he? And we would be wise to listen to some of the things that he says if we would want to be joyful people, a happy people, people satisfied with the blessings that God has given us. Okay, the lesson's yours. You have a need. Let your request be made known as we stand and sing the invitation song.